Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Taco Tuesday.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos. It's raining tacos out in the street. Tacos, all you can eat. Lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yummity yum. It's like a dream.
That's right, folks. It is like a dream as we are enjoying Taco Tuesday today. It's me, it's you. We're having a good time talking about the news, having a good time on this fine Tuesday. Would love to hear from you if you're watching this program live, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Rumble. Go ahead and comment. Let us know what you think about the program. Let us know what you think about the topic that we're discussing, or maybe you just want to give us a shout out. Let us know where you're watching us from. Go ahead and give us a shout out, and if we find it to be interesting, we will share it with our audience, and if not, we won't. Know that you don't have to agree with us for it to be interesting. In fact, if you disagree with us, it's more likely to be interesting, but do know this, we do reserve the right to mock you.
Oh wow, is that a mockingbird?
Man, is that a mockingbird? Is that a mockingbird?
That's right. We do reserve the right to mock you, or as Mike would like to say, usually says, we will mock you. Now, it's all in fun because we like having fun here on The Rundown. Before we get into having that fun, though, you know how we have to start it off. We have to start it off with a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start off with Hitman Industries. They have rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. So if you've purchased an AR recently, chances are you already have one of their barrels, which just goes to show you know how good it is. So why not get another one? So go ahead, check them out today at hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all level of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Folks, Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. Go to cragop.org in order to check them out, in order to find out a little bit more about them. Because if you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. Just go to hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns, and order your holster today. If you go there and you use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, just like it is right up there, you're going to get a discount on us. And then finally, if you're looking for any sort of tactical gear, you can find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. They specialize in group sales. They have a huge selection. They have competitive prices and the best customer service available out there. Folks, you want to check them out. Once again, the only place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, that would be uscombatgear.com. All right, I got to admit, we're a little light on news today, but this one just kind of stood out in my mind. More kind of a commentary, less of news, but it became news because you had the former national security advisor for President Obama, Susan Rice. This was on the news, or was talking with, was doing some commentary on MSNBC regarding the whole Russian Ukrainian war, and she decided to drop this little ditty, this little bomb in the middle of her comments.
I mean, really, Nicole, it's pathetic. It's been clearly and repeatedly established, including by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee led by Marco Rubio, that Russia interfered in the 2016 election by disinformation campaigns, by social media efforts, by all sorts of means short of manipulating the actual vote. And that's just a fact. Now, obviously, Donald Trump doesn't like that fact. He doesn't like the fact that the intelligence community and the Senate bipartisan intelligence committee assessed that this interference was intended to not only sow distrust in our democracy, but to benefit Donald Trump. But all of that really is beside the point. We are in 2025, and Donald Trump professes to be committed to trying to bring peace to Ukraine in the wake of Russia's brutal, years-long invasion. And rather than put the sort of pressure on Putin and Russia that is necessary to move Putin towards peace, stronger sanctions, secondary sanctions on the major suppliers of Russia, as well as the purchasers of Russian oil and gas, giving Ukraine the military hardware in the quantities with the reliability that it needs to strengthen its position on the battlefield, instead of doing the things that would strengthen the Ukrainian, Western, NATO, U.S. partnership.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. So in other words, what she's saying is, well, they clearly, there's no doubt that that they were involved in, or that there was Russian collusion, which is pretty much what she was saying. Now, this goes in contradiction to what we've learned, the information that was released by Tulsi Gabbard, which basically pointed to and talked to the very fact that senior intelligence officials had access to information. They were basically given information that basically said, yeah, there was no real credible attack on the 2016 election. The Russians were not very successful. In other words, specifically, they were talking about attempts to actually hack elections. Now, I don't believe they mentioned anything about social media posts or anything like that. But what you had was you had the president of the United States call all of his senior advisors in, all of his senior staff in, and basically told them, I want you to find information. I want you to dig up information on Russian collusion. I want you to talk about how they might have influenced the election. And that's when they came up with they did social media posts and yada, yada, yada. And we only know this because, number one, Tulsi Gabbard declassified documents, but we also know it because FBI Director Kash Patel came across some information that was actually in burn bags, basically where they were trying to hide the evidence that all of this took place.
Sean, I was blown away, but sadly, it's come to be expected in this town when corrupt bureaucrats weaponize and destroy law enforcement like predecessors of mine did at the FBI. And thankfully, Donald Trump's mandate and election victory was for transparency and accountability. Sean, just think about this for a second. Not only did we expose the Russiagate hoax with the greats like Devin and Trey and Johnny Ratcliffe when we were back there in the House Intel Committee excavating and exposing the FISA abuses, the corruption of political parties, and the lies to a federal court just to illegally surveil a presidential candidate. I come in then years later, nearly a decade as a director of the FBI, thinking we uncovered most of it. But sadly, we found a room locked away in the Hoover building that contained burn bags. And just for your audience, Sean, a burn bag is a government bag that is specifically created to destroy classified evidence and shred and burn it, hence the name burn bag. We didn't find one, we found 7. That wasn't the only thing we found in there. We found hard drives from our predecessors and prior FBI leadership, and folks like Page, Strzok, Comey, McCabe, Comey, the list goes on from Russiagate. The names were strewn all over these materials. Now, as our great Attorney General just told you, we can't deny or confirm what we're looking at, but what we can discuss is what we've publicly disclosed. And these documents have been publicly disclosed because the greatest way to educate and bring along the American public for transparency, initiative, and accountability under President Trump is to give them the documents. And step 1 is by cleaning house inside the walls of Hoover.
So, and he brought up a very valid point here. Keep in mind, before all of this ever happened, before the election and all of that, we already knew what had, to a certain degree, what happened. We already knew because someone had already been convicted. They were lying on FISA warrants. And basically, you had a low-level attorney who was the one who wound up doing some time regarding that. But I'm pretty sure he wasn't the only person that was involved. I doubt he made the decision himself to go ahead and lie on the warrants. So we already knew that they were lying on the warrants. We already knew that it had already been uncovered that the Steele dossier was actually came from a already discredited British source, but we already knew that it was put together at the behest of and paid for by the Clinton campaign in 2016. We now know from information that's been leaked that we planned, they used that as the foundation to begin an investigation. Right? We know that was the Clinton plan. Now, granted, Clinton's running for office. She has a right to do whatever the heck she wants. But when you are in the FBI, when you're the ones who are part of you don't get to just, when you know something is tainted, when you know something and someone has brought you something that is clearly tainted, you're not supposed to use that as a foundation for an investigation. I'm sorry, but no. And keep in mind, this was a 4-year-long investigation that hampered a lot of Trump's efforts. And by the way, those weren't the only ones. You also had Brennan, who was a part of the problem.
Did evidence exist of collusion, coordination, conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russian state actors at the time you learned of 2016 efforts?
I encountered and am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign that I was concerned about because of known Russian efforts to suborn such individuals. And it raised questions in my mind, again, whether or not the Russians were able to gain the cooperation of those individuals. I don't know whether or not such collusion, that's your term, such collusion existed. I don't know. But I know that there was a sufficient basis of information and intelligence that required further investigation by the Bureau to determine whether or not U.S. persons were actively conspiring, colluding with Russian officials.
Now, mind you, that was 2017. So by then they knew. But yet it was only 2017. It was still going on. The investigations were still taking place. Why? I mean, you knew. By then you already knew that it was we already knew about the Steele dossier. We had already, by 2017 or 28, was it 2018? No, it wasn't until later we actually knew about the FISA warrants. But more and more stuff had been revealed. And the reason why this was still taking place was because you still had guys like James Comey, who was running the FBI.
You look at this White House now, and it's hard to imagine 2 FBI agents ending up in the same room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. In both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI...
So I want you to listen. So basically, he's talking about having people involved in spying on campaigns. And he's like, because I got away with it, because I sent them. I mean, they were spying on campaigns. They were spying on administrations. He basically, his whole goal was to basically to unseat the president. And I don't know. I'm thinking about all of this. And like I said, the reason why I keep playing, I played those 3 people is because those are the 3 people who are likely to do jail time. Honestly. But those are the 3 that are likely to do some jail time. I doubt that President Obama will do jail time. I know Mike says he thinks he will, or he thinks he should. I'm not saying he shouldn't. I'm just saying that I think that he has enough plausible deniability to say, I wanted to know how they could have. I didn't say manufacture anything. I didn't say to ignore intelligence that we already have. I just want to know how they could have. And I think that they did that, and they came up with something, and ignored the evidence that they already had on hand, which was that there was no real impact. And basically, they sent some mean tweets and memes and stuff like that. And the reality is, folks, for the people who are already going to vote against, who are going to vote for Donald Trump, they were already going to vote for him. For the people who are already going to vote against him, they were already going to vote against him. I sincerely doubt that memes put out by memes or social media posts put out by Russian bots played a role in that. Because, by the way, his victory was so overwhelming. And it wasn't as big as his victory in 2024, but it was a pretty clean victory. He didn't win the majority, but he did a good job in all of the swing states. And, that's an example of them just not being willing to own their stuff. But anyway, hopefully the worst case scenario is all of this stuff is revealed and the American public who's willing to pay attention, because there are some people, by the way, who just will never pay attention. They will never see it. They don't care about the truth because they hate Donald Trump that much. So those folks will never reach. But there are folks out there who I think we do have an opportunity to reach. And I think we need to do the best we can to try and at least let them know that this has happened. Because if you expose it, then it's a lot less likely that it winds up happening again. All right, here's another story, and this one's actually kind of bugs me, and I feel a little bad only because I'm burying the lead to a certain degree. I have to admit in this one, but you only have so much room on this thing for me to put the headline. So, Lamar Jackson, the quarterback for the last year's NFL MVP and the quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, he is known far and wide throughout NFL circles. He has no issue expressing his Christian faith, and he had the nerve to actually retweet something from a Christian conservative influencer. And that got him, well, let's put it this way, the left-wing liberals have lost their minds behind it. This being reported by Fox News, Ravens Lamar Jackson sparks outrage after reposting conservative influencers' Christian message. It says here, Baltimore Ravens star Lamar Jackson faced backlash on Sunday night and Monday after he reshared a post from conservative influencer Charlie Kirk on X. Jackson, who is known to be outward about his Christian religious beliefs, reshared a message from Kirk which read, "It's all about Jesus." The quarterback's X timeline is filled with religious posts, and with him proclaiming that God is good, he also reposted Bible messages from different accounts as well. However, the seemingly innocuous post he reshared on X sparked a frenzy of hate toward the two-time MVP. So here's some of it. It says, guys, I'm very aware that Lamar Jackson probably has zero idea who Charlie Kirk is and is solely retweet because it talks about his faith. But it is still wild to see your favorite player's name right above the second spawn of Satan himself. Once again, a guy who promotes Christian faith, a guy who talks about Christian faith, who helps bring people to Christian faith. He calls him the spawn of Satan. Let's see. Oh, it's not the message that is the problem. It's the messenger. If Lamar Jackson was a plumber and not a NFL player, Charlie Kirk would call him a DEI hire. He wouldn't trust him to work on his home. He only would not trust him if he had demonstrated that he was incompetent at being a plumber. That's kind of what DEI is about, folks. It's about not being qualified. In this case, Lamar Jackson has proven he is more than proven that he is qualified to be an NFL quarterback, not just to be an NFL quarterback, but to be an MVP NFL quarterback, not once, but twice. It says here, agreed. My point is that I doubt Lamar even knew who Charlie Kirk was when he retweeted him. Everyone knows Lamar retweets almost anything about his faith. And at least that guy gets it. It says here, Fox News Digital reached out to Lamar rep for comment. Jackson's political ideologies are unclear, thank God, but what has been crystal clear are his are his belief in God and Jesus. He has made a point to praise the Lord before and after Ravens games. He said in 2023, upon signing a new contract with the Ravens, that he was unconcerned with what outsiders were saying about him while he was negotiating his deal. It's not about what people say, it is about believing in yourself at the end of the day, he said at the time via Sports Spectrum. Keeping God first, because without him, there is no Lamar Jackson. I'm going to tell you that. It's far from the first time Jackson has put his faith first, and it doesn't appear that he will stop anytime soon. And I'm sincerely hoping, I really am, and I don't care where he is in terms of his political beliefs. Because here's the thing. As a Christian, as a believer, the one thing we ought to be able to come together in is our common faith in Christ, whether he is a Republican or whether he is a Democrat, whether he is a conservative, or whether he is a liberal. We should be able to come together in faith. I should be able to, if we do have a question about politics and policy, we ought to be able to go to the Bible, open it up, and what does the Bible say about this? If he brings me his scripture, or you bring me your scriptures, I'll bring you my scriptures, and let's compare and see where we wind up, and hopefully we learn something from one another. But what I find is people on the left, their hatred of Republicans, of conservatives, and keep in mind, this is just an offshoot of Trump derangement syndrome. Trump derangement syndrome is not about Donald Trump. It's about people who challenge their orthodoxy, the left-wing neo-Marxist orthodoxy. If you challenge it, they want to shut you down. They want to call you the devil, which is kind of funny because they're the ones that are the atheists. They're the ones who don't believe in God. And yes, there are Christians who are Democrats who believe in God, but I will tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, your party, members of your party, a significant percentage of your party in the Democratic Party does not. And they advocate policies to make sure that you are restricted in your ability to acknowledge your God. Now, you may not want to admit that, but that is the truth. Still love you in Christ. And what I also wanted to say was, in sports used to be a place where I remember, because I got friends who are conservative, I got friends who are liberal, and I remember we don't, when I'm watching football, I'm not asking people what their political beliefs are. I don't want to know. I really don't. Not at that time. At that time, it's an opportunity for us to come together on something, right? To find common ground. And hopefully from that common ground later we can, find something even more important to come together about. But when you want to come down on somebody because they shared a Christian message, a message about, it's all about Jesus. I'm sorry. You know what? If you want to get butthurt over something like that, then maybe, just maybe, you need to rethink your priorities. Not saying, just saying. All right. That we've been talking about this. The president has really been working to come down on crime, in particular in the D.C. area. And I know he's talked about expanding his work into other cities. I don't believe he has the legal recourse to be able to do that. All that having been said, we've talked about how a lot of the people within D.C. are, well, let's put it this way. The white liberals and the political leaders, which happen to be black, they are decrying it as authoritarian and racist. The people, either in the low-income neighborhoods, the high-crime neighborhoods, or the black neighborhoods, they are liking it. They're liking it because they don't like crime, and anything that helps get rid of crime, they want to get rid of. Among that crime also includes gun crimes or violence involving firearms. Well, NPR now has a piece, and I wanted to point this out, and this is the reason why NPR is losing their federal funding, because they don't know how to look at all sides of an issue, because they don't know how to be nonpartisan in their communication in issues. Gun violence hits black communities hardest. Trump is rolling back prevention efforts. It says here, less than a mile from a century-old mill that sustained generations in this small town of New Orleans. 19-year-old, I'm not even Tawdry, okay, but Tawdry Forbes was shot to death near his mother's house. She found Forbes face down in the street in August of 2023, 2 weeks before he had planned to move away from the empty storefronts, boarded up houses, and poverty that make this one of the most troubled places in the nation. Nikitra Guy thought about how her son overcame losing his father at the age of 4 and was the glue of the family. She called him humble and respectful, a leader in the community and on the football field where he shined. Yet, he could not outrun the grim statistics of his hometown. Since beginning of COVID and since COVID-19 pandemic, gun violence has surged, shattering any sense of peace or progress here. Louisiana suffers from the nation's second highest firearm death rate, and Bogalusa, a prominent Black community with 10,000 residents, has seen dozens of shootings and a violent crime rate approaching twice the national average. A nearby team refused to play football at Bogalusa High School in the fall of 2022, citing safety concerns. Its mayor, Tyron Trung, who was elected in 2022 at the age of 23 on his promises to fix entrenched challenges, few youth programs, good jobs, and perpetual crime and blight. I ran for mayor because I got sick of seeing our city painted as mini New Orleans, he said, due to the high levels of youth gun violence. Now, what's funny is that in this piece, they go on to talk about how Donald Trump is overturning all of these, or at least affecting funding for a lot of these programs that are supposedly reducing gun violence. The first thing I'll say is this: in many of these cases, what they are talking about is not the removal of, is not gun control, right? So they're not talking about he's undoing gun control, but programs that they have designed around providing opportunities to have, for recreation, after school activities, education, entrepreneurship. They're talking about programs like that, which at the very least, I will give them some credit. They're recognizing that the issue is a people issue, not a firearm issue. So I'll give them some credit for that. The challenge that I have with this is there's a reason why those programs are needed. And the number one reason why those programs are needed, as was pointed out right here, is because you have too many, in particular young men, but you have too many young boys and young girls who are growing up without a father in the home. And as such, and I've always said this, the role of parents is to be disciplinarians, right? They're to provide the discipline. They provide the discipline in order to help young people develop self-discipline. And as you develop self-discipline, you then are in a position where you can not only be not a burden to society, but if you have true self-discipline, you now can add to society. You now have the self-discipline to work hard. You have the self-discipline to study. You have the self-discipline to be an asset to society. But for some reason, Donald Trump is the one that's undermining all of this. And I don't understand why we're not focusing on programs that focus on rebuilding the family. There's a reason. If you want to look at what impacts, whether it's crime statistics, whether it's socioeconomic statistics, whether it's academic statistics, financial, whatever it is, the number one determiner is whether or not you have an intact two-parent household. I've seen it said time and time again by preacher after preacher, by researcher after researcher. Tell you how you stay out of poverty, right? Finish high school. Don't have any children until you've finished high school, right? That's number one. And number two, then get a good job. But that's number one and number two is if you do those two things Oh, and you wait till you get married to have children. That's the other one. Those three things will guarantee that you stay out of poverty. Guarantee. Because the instances of people who wind up in those situations, it's almost nil. It is almost nil. Because what happens is most people who are in poverty are either children who were raised by single parents, or they are a teenage single, or they're a young single parent. One of the two, right? Those are the two things. They are either the child of a single parent, or they are themselves a young single parent. That's the overwhelming majority of people who wind up in poverty. And even with that, the overwhelming majority of them don't stay in poverty unless they repeat the cycle, right? Meaning they don't graduate from high school. They have a child before they graduate from high school, and they have a child out of wedlock. They repeat the cycle. Literally, that's the thing. So if you want to break a cycle, if you want to talk about it, ain't Donald Trump, it ain't the Republicans, it ain't even the liberal Democrats, it ain't even the it is a you choice. Graduate from high school. Don't have a child till you graduate from high school, and wait till you get married to have a child. Right now that you will stay out of poverty. Period. But they blame Donald Trump for violence that takes place because, Donald Trump is an easy target. Anyway, moving on to our last story. This is one that, I have to admit, probably would have been more interesting when I were younger. When I were Playboy was a lot more significant when I were younger. He was when I was younger in my life, or not just my life, when any of us were younger. Internet has basically, made Playboy slightly irrelevant. But anyway, all that having been said, California has become so non-business friendly, so anti-business, that even the porn industry is like, yeah, we can't make money in California. This ain't working. Playboy is moving headquarters from Los Angeles to Miami Beach, opening a new club. Playboy plans to relocate its global headquarters from Los Angeles to Miami Beach and open a Playboy club there. Miami Beach headquarters at the top of a luxury office building will include studios to support Playboy's growing creator network, and the club will have a restaurant as well as a members-only section inspired by the Playboy Mansion in Los Angeles. The company said Thursday in a statement, quote, Miami Beach is among the most dynamic and culturally influential cities in the country, making it the ideal home for Playboy's next chapter, Ben Cohn, CEO of Playboy Inc., said in a statement. Now, I'm going to say it once again. California has become so anti-business that even the porn industry is now leaving California. And that's really all I have to say about that. That's just, I guess in California, they don't know how to party. Because we can't even keep Playboy here. That's how anti-business California is. And that is, folks, that is absolutely no joke. All right, folks, so that's now going to bring us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word. Get your hog holster today. All of our parting shots today will be brought to you by the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust. The first one here. Schumer said he's never felt danger walking in D.C., and neither have his 10 bodyguards. That kind of explains to you why they feel so safe, because, they do kind of have folks that are around them protecting them. Anyway. In regards to Trump's war on mail-in ballots, Nancy Pelosi says, Dems say mail-in ballot ban will place undue hardship on dead voters. Oops. Oh, this next one I probably should have done with before I did this one. This here, Metropolis sues Spider-Man. Metropolis sues Superman for reducing crime. There you go. And this one is really just kind of ironic. They have it here as a headline, but it really does make an interesting point. Problems in the Middle East blamed on the 0.3% of it that isn't an Islamic dictatorship. That's right. 0.3% of the Middle East, that would be the Jews in Israel. Everything wrong in the Middle East evidently is their fault because they're not part of a dictatorship or an Islamic dictatorship, to be specific. Anyway. All right, folks, that's going to bring us to the end of the program. But before we go, we're going to have one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with Hitman Industries rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at hitmanindustries.net. We got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out at cragop.org. And then finally, the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, uscombatgear.com. All right, folks, that's going to be it for today. We will be back tomorrow on Wednesday, which is Hump Day. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and we will see you tomorrow.